Welcome to the Bright Wings Transformational Show. This is Nancy Boyd, your host. Get ready for some transformation. Hi there, I'm Nancy Boyd, and today I want to talk about the 5 steps to master resiliency. We are in a time of great change and turmoil in the world, and this skill of resiliency is one of the top 10 tools that you need, one of the top 10 life mastery skills that everyone needs in order to have a life that is really worth living and in which you can thrive. So first, I want to put this into a little bit of context for us as we proceed into talking about resiliency. Right now, as we record this, there's 4 major ways that everyone on the planet is being affected and impacted. One of the things is the global pandemic that has been affecting us since 2020. And even though there have been a lot of miraculous tools that we've discovered that can help us heal from it and not get sick, the whole world still isn't in a place where we've got this under control yet. And so this is an ongoing stressor. In addition to that, we have the global climate crisis. And if you aren't aware of how powerful some of this can be, you just are not paying attention, because there is nowhere in the world that hasn't been affected by the effects of climate crisis. And some recent events, as of this recording, have pointed to how serious it's getting. It's not getting better. And we can and hopefully will create solutions to that. But in the meantime, we still have to cope with it. And it's still affecting everyone. Another stressor that we're all facing is the economic and sort of cultural turmoil that has been caused by all of these things. Sometimes people have been displaced by the climate crisis events in their area, or perhaps because of COVID events, that they have lost their jobs or various situations like that that have caused them to have to face some real serious economic challenges. And whether that has happened to you or not, or anyone that you know, we are still affected by those things because they have ripple effects all through society, from one part of the world to another. When there's fuel shortages, and when there's supply chain disruption, when there's crop failures, there's all kinds of ways that we all are being affected, whether or not it's happened directly to us or not. And finally, there's a lot of political change and upheaval in the world, and that's a very stressful thing to face. So while these things are not impossible to solve, they're definitely survivable. And when we're talking about resilience, one of the reasons that we are talking about it is because we're in a time of great turmoil and crisis, and we need some tools to handle it better. Frankly, one of the things that I've been discovering as I've been studying this and working with it more and more is that sometimes it boils down to us being able to manage ourselves and our conflicts better. And I think Brendan Burchard was talking about this recently as well, that one of the problems that we're facing is we just don't have enough skills to do what we need to do in the world to do it better. And right now is a time where if we don't do it better, we're going to be in really serious trouble. And the more that we can learn and more skills that we can bring to bear, the better off we're going to be, and the better off our communities and families are going to be, and better outcomes we're going to create together. And that's what I'm working for. That's what I'm working toward. And I hope you are too. And I hope that that's one of the reasons why you're here. So let's get into what the 5 steps are. Actually, there's probably more than that, but I just want to focus on 5 important ones today. And I'll talk about some ways that you can learn more in the future if you want to after this presentation. So first of all, assess the situation and what context it's happening in. What's actually happening, not what you're afraid is going to be happening, but what actually is happening. Do a reality check. Like, what are the facts here? And get clear about that. you can acknowledge what your fears and concerns and worries are, but the first job that you need to do is get a handle on what the facts are, what's actually happening, so that you understand. From there, we go to the second step. Identify strengths and resources that you have or can develop or have developed, and build upon them. Get ready to build upon them, because you're going to need to do that. It's fine to whatever resources and skills that you already have, but let's expand and grow them. This is the time to do that. And everybody needs to do this. Everybody has some skills already, some strengths, but you can always improve upon them. And we need to, in order to not only survive, but really get through things in good shape. So that's one of the pieces of the skills of resiliency that you need to develop and think about and build upon. One of the ways that you can do that is to think about, what have you already survived? A lot of us have already been through an awful lot of things in life, and some of them have not been very good, but you made it through. You're here, you're still here. And the ways that you manage to get through them are the resilient skills that you can bring to bear on anything else, and you can grow and build upon those skills. When you've been through something hard, how did it change you? What did you learn from it? What can you apply from that experience that can make your life and those lives of those around you better going forward? So think about those things. Those are the things I'm talking about, of what you can build on in the future. Are there people that you know that have survived some hard things that can serve as your role models? I think, honestly, there's so many people today who've risen above their circumstances and created amazing lives for themselves. One of my favorite role models, and I forget his name, and I'm sorry that I can't think of it in the moment, but it's a guy who was born without either arms or legs. And man, what a life he has created for himself. He's just able to do amazing things. And you would think there would be serious limitations because of it. And he has some, but he didn't let that stop him. And when you want to look at resilience, you want to look at role models like that in life. How have people like that managed to overcome things that you couldn't even imagine having to cope with? And yet people do, and people have, and can, and so can you. So let those role models, whoever they are in your world or that you can find, serve to inspire you and motivate you. Because if they can do it, you can do it. So now let's talk about the third step. And from here, the next three steps, third, fourth, and fifth steps, are all about preparation. And in some ways, the kinds of preparations that you can do in advance of something bad happening really can make a difference to the quality of your experience in surviving it. And sometimes whether you survive it at all. So what I would be talking about is what you can do in advance, as well as how to handle things when they're actually happening. So a little bit of both. The third preparation is to prepare yourself mentally. Now, I've heard people say, well, why think about these things? Aren't you just calling it into experience if you think about them? And I don't actually think so. What I think is that when you prepare in advance for something, you enable yourself, you empower yourself and your families to get through it in much better shape than if you hadn't done that. So it's like a little bit of insurance, if you will, on some potential future, that a lot of which we hope never happens, but if it does, you're going to be ready for it, and you're going to get through it in a lot better shape than if you hadn't taken these steps. So the third step in preparation is to prepare mentally. Prepare yourself for a time when, if disaster should strike your life, and these things come up suddenly, you can't predict them, like when or what is going to happen. But if and when something does happen, you may have to make rapid decisions and choices. And sometimes there'll be tough choices. And in that moment of extreme situation, you might not know if it's going to, whatever choice you're going to make, what's going to be the right one? Is it going to work or not? The main thing that you need to keep a focus on is to not let fear stop you or panic stop you. And that's what I mean by preparing mentally, so that if and when something does happen, you're able to keep going. You're able to work through it, move through it in an effective way. Almost anything you can handle, even if you make the wrong choices, as long as you can survive it. You need to, first of all, get yourself to someplace safe. Let's say that. Get out of danger, and then figure out what your next steps are and deal with the emotions, which we're going to talk about in step 4, to prepare yourself emotionally. So first of all, get your head around the fact that disasters can happen to anybody. And even if they haven't happened to you yet, they could. And prepare yourself to deal with them as best you can at the mental level, so that in that moment, you're functioning at your very best and you're not letting anything get in the way of doing what you need to do to make good choices, good decisions, as best ones that you can, given the circumstances. And that goes back to step 1 of assessing the situation. Like, what are you actually dealing with here? Deal with that and not with the fears around it, because that'll put you in a place where you can be effective, even dealing with the fears that you could have and what you would do in certain scenarios around those fears, if and when they happen. Because a lot of times the things we are afraid of never happen. And that's a good thing. But you can prepare yourself for them mentally first, just in case something does come up. And what would you do? How would you handle it if it did? And thinking certain scenarios through is a part of the mental preparation that you can do in advance, so that in that moment, you will, in some ways, have already faced whatever it is that you are now facing, but you've worked it through in your mind. So you know kind of how to function through it. So step 4, prepare emotionally. And by this, I mean, you're going to have feelings about whatever is going on when something bad happens. And you will have all kinds of feelings that you don't even expect to have during it and after it. So when you prepare yourself emotionally, just expect that that's going to happen. That is one preparation that you can do in advance, is just to allow for the fact that things could be very volatile and your own feelings might not be as much under control as you wish they were. And that happens to everybody. That's normal. That's a normal human response to hard things and traumatic things. So you might also want to think about the emotional toll or the emotional effects of what will happen when you have to take risks. And let's say that you're not a person who likes taking risks, but you still have to. Well, prepare yourself emotionally to do that by talking yourself through it some ways, you know. Like how would I handle it if I had to do something that I didn't want to do and I have a lot of feelings about it? I'll tell you, one of the secrets about this is to go ahead and have those feelings while you're in action, taking care of the immediate situation, because you'll always be time on the other side of it to process those feelings. And it's always a good idea after a traumatic event to create some space for yourself and for your family members to process what has happened, and give yourself enough time to do whatever you need to do about that emotionally, from an emotional level. That's a healthy thing to do. You don't have to process it all at once. And there may be times when it's so intense that you have to almost shut your feelings down just to get through it, and then deal with it all on the other side, because that can happen too. That's another scenario of a way to prepare yourself emotionally. But just anticipate, knowing yourself as much as you can, how you would function in an extreme situation if you had to do something difficult in a hurry, and expect that you're going to have lots and lots of feelings. And how will you handle those feelings at the time? Will you let yourself have enough that you can get through it and save the rest for later? The one thing I would advise is if you find yourself in panic, get some help immediately to break through that, because being frozen in panic is not going to help you. In fact, it's going to hurt you in a crisis situation. So that's another piece that I kind of want to put into the hopper here as we're talking about creating resilience skills to prepare for traumatic events. Hopefully none of them are going to happen, but that if they did, you would know how to function better in them. And maybe even at some point you can role play with someone to work through some of the anticipated things that you think might happen for you in a very tough situation, so that you could practice behaviors and ways to handle yourself and manage your own emotions and manage and control yourself enough that you could survive it. That's the bottom line. You got to survive it first and then deal with everything else and put the pieces back together later on. And you can and will do that. But first you have to survive it. So remember that. And finally, the fifth step in creating resiliency for yourself is to prepare physically. And there's a lot of things you can do here. I'm not suggesting that we all go out and become preppers, because that's a whole other thing. And there are people in that kind of lifestyle that have some kind of interesting takes on life that may or may not match where you are. So just if you enter that space, do it with a bit of forewarning, and just take what you can use and leave some of the rest of it if it doesn't fit for you. But to prepare physically, there's a couple of things I mean by that. And I'm feeling that the way the world is these days, there's some steps that everybody probably should be taking to prepare in advance for some unexpected event. Let's just call it that. And one of the things that you can do is to digitize important documents like your birth certificates, like your passports, driver's licenses, credit cards, things like that. Have them take an image of them somehow, capture them, and put them on in digital format, like on a thumb drive, for example, that's portable, that you can take with you, and have access to it outside of the home environment, but so that you don't have to carry around all these important papers. Some of them you might want to have in a safety deposit box or someplace really, really safe from flood or fire and so forth, so that you have a copy of them if you need them, and are portable enough that you can take them with you easily and have access to them when you need them. And the originals are stored someplace safe, as I said, wherever you want to keep them safe. Know that your number one priority at all times is get out of danger. That's your physical priority. And for yourself and your family, get to safety quickly, and then deal with everything else, create solutions and so forth. But first, keep yourself safe, get out of the danger situation. And how are we going to do that? Well, have lists prepared of what are important to you to have with you if you had to leave your home or the environment where you are suddenly because of some unexpected crisis, which we have seen happens unexpectedly to anyone. Nobody's safe from it, really, in the time and world that we're living in now. And know what are the important things and bits of information that you would need. And so sometimes people will create an emergency bag. Some people call it a bug out bag. And that's just a container of things that can help you survive and get through the next 3 days if you have to suddenly leave. And it's ready to go. It's already pre-packed. And in it, you would have some changes of clothing, for example. You would have any medications that you might need. You would have some toiletries, like some soap and things like that, that can just help you stay clean. Maybe a small first aid kit in case that you would have need of that. Whatever it is, remember that you have to carry this with you. And I would say have one for each person in the family, plus any of your pets that you have. So some portable, non-perishable food would be good to have. And even though it might not be the ultimate diet that you'd prefer to be eating, it would help you survive. So have some of that in the bag with you, even a bottle of water, maybe, for each person as well. A small amount of cash on hand, because we never know what will have happened, and will we have access to ATMs or whatever as ways to get cash if we needed it outside of the home environment. So think through all of these things, make the lists, get some of your paperwork, important paperwork, digitized in advance so that you can carry it with you. And once you've made your lists of things that you may think you may need to take with you and under an emergency, figure out what you would do in that actual emergency. What will you take with you? What will you move to a safer place if you can, if you have enough time? And are there things that you wish to protect in other ways? Do you have insurance on some of the important things in your objects and so forth? And do you have insured for fire and flood and tornadoes and all the different kinds of things that might happen? That's another way to prepare physically in advance. And it should also be said to prepare physically by taking excellent care of yourself, your physical self. Eat healthy, exercise, be in good shape as best you can. Have your medical checkups. If you're someone who is worried about contracting illnesses and so forth, do what you can through your medical care facility to prepare and protect yourself from those in the ways that are appropriate for you and for your beliefs. So those are some of the things that you can do to prepare yourself physically. And so let's review what we've talked about here. In developing and mastering resilience during really difficult times. And even if there's difficulty is not happening to you personally, the times we're living in are difficult to get through. We want to survive and we want to thrive and we want to create, well, my mission is to help and work with people who are working to create a world that no one needs to recover from. And what a beautiful world that would be. So that's my mission in life. I'm here to support people who are doing that kind of work. And hopefully you are one of them or will become one of them, because we need as many people as possible working to create that kind of a world. So the 5 simple steps, and these are basically simple things, and they're all things that you need to think about and think through. Don't say, oh, I'll get to it later, because what if you don't have later? What if something happens too fast before you have set aside the time to do this? So when you're listening to this today, set aside the time. When will you handle these important things? Because your survival may depend on it. And the connection that you have with other people may depend on what you know about this, because maybe they don't know the things that you're learning today. So share that with them and help them, everybody that you know, get to a place where you can get to safety and do the steps that you need to do to come out on the other side in really good shape, so that together we can go create that world and create it in a much more beautiful way. So the 5 steps to master are assess. Number 1, assess the situation and the context that it's happening in. Do a reality check. What's actually happening, not what you think is happening or are afraid is happening, but what's actually happening. Get the facts so that you know and understand. And the second step is identify strengths and resources and build upon them. Whatever you've got, build on it. Connect with other people. That's another way to build upon strengths and resources. That maybe somebody has resources you don't have, and you can connect with each other to help each other. And so keep that in mind as you're thinking through that step. And the next 3 steps are about preparation. Number 3, prepare mentally. Get your head around the fact that preparing in advance is going to help you get through things and help you think through things in ways that you wouldn't have if you hadn't taken the time to do it. So it's an important step. Prepare emotionally. How are you going to handle your feelings? How are you going to control your own responses in ways that are going to serve you rather than get in trouble? Have you stuck in a corner with a deer in its headlights, frozen, not knowing what to do? That's not going to help you. Be prepared for something big enough to happen that if you have that response, you can get yourself out of it and get to an emotional space where you could be effective in taking some action towards getting yourself safe, keeping yourself safe, and creating solutions for whatever is going on. And finally, prepare physically. Take whatever steps you can in advance so that when things happen, you can grab and go and have presence of mind just to deal with everything else and not worry about the survival bits, because you've got that covered. You've got some important pieces handled already. So you're ahead of the game right there, and ahead of a lot of other people who haven't done that. That is as much as I can share with you today. I will be offering a masterclass in developing resiliency, probably in 2023 is the current timeline for that. And I encourage you to follow me and opt into my list. If you want to learn more about that, you can do that at www.brightwings.com/about. And when you're on that page, there's a place to opt into my list. And when you do that, you will get a free book that I wrote called Partner with the Power to Create Your Life. And it will give you the tips and tools that you need in order to create something really wonderful for yourself and get you started on building your own resiliency. We'll have more about that later on, and I'll be sharing it to people who are on my list of how you can participate in that. So I wish you a wonderful day. I wish you a wonderful experience in life, and with as much resiliency as you can bring and share with the world, we're all going to get through things in much better shape. And I appreciate you. I love the work that you do here in the world just by showing up. So take care and have a beautiful day. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this, please follow, subscribe, and share with your friends.